Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will give it a few moments for everyone to join the session, but we are very excited that you're here today. This is our second Creativity and Innovation Workshop from Women in Tech US. So again, thank you all for joining us today. If you want to go ahead and say hello in the chat as we get started, let us know where you're joining from. We'd love to say hello.
Yes. And as you join, you can see there's a creative warm-up on the screen. Go ahead and type roar in the chat box if you can see the hidden tiger. Don't give it away. Don't say where you found it. Just type roar in the chat if you find the hidden tiger.
Oh, I've been looking at this photo and I still can't see it.
I know, Stephanie, we've been here for a couple of minutes now. I'm like, I wonder if she's found it. Probably too busy handling all the tech stuff behind the scenes. Didn't have time.
That's awesome.
But now you can focus on it.
All right. Well, we do have a fun and creative session ahead of us today. We'll be using our creativity to embrace complexity and turn it into possibilities. So it is my pleasure to kick off today's event. My name is Stephanie Tatum, and I'm the Marketing and Events Chair for the U.S. chapter of Women in Tech. I'm joined by our Creativity and Innovation Program co-chair and today's speaker, Lai-DuMone. For anyone who's new to Women in Tech, we're a global organization, and so just want to give you a little bit more info on our double mission, which includes closing the gender gap and helping women embrace technology so that we can empower 5 million women and girls across the globe by 2030 and meet 5 UN Sustainable Development Goals along the way. Our focus is on education, entrepreneurialism, social inclusion, and science and innovation. This creativity and innovation programming is one of the ways that we work to educate, equip, and empower women with the necessary skills, confidence, and opportunities to succeed in STEM career fields. Like we said, we encourage you to use the chat to connect with each other and today's speaker. We welcome comments and feedback throughout the session, so we hope that's an active place for you to engage. And just know that we will also reserve some time toward the end of the hour for some Q&A, so feel free to submit any questions in the Q&A box right there on the right-hand side of your screen. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker, Van. She's the founder of worksmart, a progressive team development and leadership training consultancy that utilizes creativity, play, and experiential learning to evolve mindset, skill sets, and behaviors in the workplace. Her work is built on the foundation that we're all creative and good ideas can come from any level of an organization. By cultivating idea sharing in the workplace, everyone has a chance to have their voice heard. She recently shared her work in a TEDx talk titled, "What If? The Life-Changing Power of Curiosity." She brings over 15 years of corporate and startup experience and is actively working to rewrite the way people apply creativity in the workplace. We're so excited to have her here today to use our right brain creative thinking in today's session. And without further ado, Van, please take it away.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. So you've had some time now to look at this image and find that hidden tiger. I don't see that anyone's typed in that they found the hidden tiger. So I'm going to go ahead and do the reveal right now and show you where the hidden tiger is. So it's actually in words and it's right inside the tiger. Stephanie, do you get that?
Wow, yeah.
But now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it. So we share this exercise at the beginning. I share this because it exemplifies the skill of a creative leader. Creative leaders are able to see things that others don't. Creative people are able to see things that others don't. And we all have the capacity to be a creative leader and to learn how to problem solve in creative ways. So if there's one thing that we have learned in the last 20 months and what this has taught us is that we're all creative. We have all needed to shift and pivot and make things work. And this is what creativity is taking things that you might not normally see as coming together and putting together to innovate and find something new. So this was just a fun exercise to exemplify that. This session is called Embrace Complexity Through Creative Leadership. And as Stephanie said, my name is Van. I am the founder of worksmart, where I do team and leadership development all through creative integration, which basically means I do everything through creativity, play, and experiential learning. This is more of a webinar style, so we will have some activities, but I'm going to be doing more presenting than I normally do. I am also the Women in Tech USA's Creativity and Innovation Program co-chair, along with my colleague Janine Letford, who you heard from last month in her session titled A Kaleidoscope View, where she gave us an experience of why seeing things from another person's perspective is critical. And if you were in that session, it was even from a bird's perspective, a bug's perspective. But the idea that seeing things from another perspective is critical for creativity and innovation. So today we're going to build on that idea as we lead up to our 4-part creativity and innovation programming in 2022. So why creativity? For me, the reason why I do my work through creativity are these reasons right here. We're all creative. Creativity is a capacity that we all have. When you incorporate creativity into any learning or teaching, what you're tapping into is an ability that every single person in the room has. I often joke that you can try to teach me accounting, not really going to be able to learn it because I don't have that capacity really. But everyone in the room has a capacity for creativity. Your creativity is going to show up differently for you than it is going to show up for me. And then creativity lets us use our imagination to see things from different perspectives, not just our own perspectives, right? We have a variety of perspectives from our own kaleidoscope, as Janine would say, but it also gives us the ability to see things from other people's perspectives. And what that does, it gives everyone a chance to have their voice heard. And in doing so, in hearing that diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, what we can do is we can transform challenges and complexity into opportunities. I love this quote. You can learn more about, okay, this is from Plato, but then I changed it. You can learn more about a person, including yourself, in an hour of play and creativity than in a year of conversation. And that holds true for me. I see it in my work every day. We add creativity and play into the work we do, into the lessons we teach. We give people a way to stay engaged, and we give people a better way to retain this information. So I'm not the only one that thinks creativity is important in the workplace. Janine also, and Women in Tech USA clearly also do too. And so does the World Economic Forum, who in a 2015 report projected that creativity would rank number 10 among the top job skills for 2020. Last year, they bumped that up to number 3, with creativity only coming behind critical thinking and complex problem solving, which I think is amazing because in the work I do and in the work that you will see today is that creativity is the driver of critical thinking and complex problem solving. So it really goes together. So I would have put creativity as number 1 and the other 2 behind it. And then also in 2020, LinkedIn did a research study that asserted that creativity is the number 1 soft skill for which companies are hiring for. So not only that, but Adobe also finds creativity important. And through a survey they did in 2016, they found that companies who invest in creativity, these are the numbers they saw: a 78% increase in their employee productivity. 80% of these companies have satisfied customers. 78% produce a better customer experience. 83% fostered innovation, and 73% are financially successful. So we are in good company when we focus on nurturing creativity of our own creativity and the creativity of our teams in the workplace. So I come to this quote by Albert Einstein: "We can't solve our problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." And since our thinking in the workplace is typically logical, analytical, and strategic, we want to not ignore that, but we want to expand that thinking by incorporating creativity, allowing us to use bilateral thinking to formulate more and new ideas. And especially when we're faced with challenges and times of complexity, naturally as human beings, when we're in those times where there's lots of stress, there's lots of challenge, and there's lots of complexity, what we tend to do as humans is to contract and get small in our thinking. But this is exactly when we should be expanding. And creativity allows us that expansion of ideas, of thought, of processes. So I'd like you to try something. I personally am not wearing shoes right now. I'm certainly not wearing shoes I can tie. But if you're at home or if you're at work and you're wearing shoes that you can tie, I'd like you to try something. I'd like you to try to tie your shoes with one hand only. So try to tie your shoes with one hand and see how well that works out for you. Probably not that great, right? I'm assuming that if you tried that, you're going to come up with not the You might have been able to tie your shoes, but probably wasn't the best results. And that's what we do when we are in analytical thinking alone. Oftentimes, again, at work, we're only using analytical thinking. And what happens is we're getting results, but we're not getting optimal results. And by bringing in creativity and that bilateral thinking, I like to use this image to show you what that does. It's just a very clear image, right? Looking at the way we normally operate in the workplace, using strategy, logic, speaking our information, typing it out on a computer, what you're getting is some ideas, those blue hues, those green hues on the left-hand side there. But when you can add the element of creativity, look how more colorful your ideas can be. So that's what we're doing by bringing creativity into the workplace to solve complex problems, is we're giving ourselves a chance to bring in more diverse and colorful ideas. All right, so let's talk a little bit about creative leadership. So what is creative leadership? It's the ability to create and innovate solutions, especially in the face of complex or changing situations, for yourself and with your teams. So creative leaders understand that you do not have all the answers, and that it's in diversity, in perspective sharing, and collaboration that leads to success. And one way to activate creative leadership is to adopt creative problem-solving tools. So what are creative problem-solving tools? So it's generally a way to solve problems differently. It's a way of using your creativity and the creativity of your team to develop new ideas and solutions to problems. And creative problem solving encourages you to find fresh perspectives from yourself and for others, and is the use of unconventional techniques to come up with fresh solutions to simple and complex challenges. So unconventional techniques. So conventional techniques are things like getting in a boardroom together and talking it out, maybe whiteboarding it. So those are conventional techniques. So what we're going to do today is look at some techniques that are a little bit more unconventional and maybe a little bit challenging for you, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but that's what growth is all about, right? Getting out of our comfort zone. So the tools of creative problem solving, we're going to give you about 3 of these today, and I hope you will go back to the workplace and try this on your own or with your teams. What I'd first like to talk about is a principle of creative problem solving. So a principle of creative problem solving is called divergent and convergent thinking. I'm not sure how many people have heard this before, but the principle of divergent and convergent thinking is a baseline for getting into creative problem solving. So the first thing is divergent thinking, and that's what our focus is going to be on today. This idea of coming up with as many ideas as possible. So when you think about ideation, problem solving, facing complex problems, again, oftentimes what we end up doing is getting smaller in our thinking, right? We want to fix things really quickly. But this is when you really need to stand back and diverge, come up with as many ideas as possible. So the concept of divergent thinking is the ideation phase of solving a problem. Ideas are shared freely. All voices are heard, and there's no judgment or criteria. Wild and crazy ideas are welcome. So imagine you're in a conference room and there's a crisis. There's a complex problem that needs to be solved. Someone will ask the question, here's our challenge, and ask for solutions. This is what typically happens in that setting. Someone comes up with an idea. The next thing that is said is, well, that might not work because, or no, but, or yes, maybe. And what that does, it kills the idea before it gives the idea room to grow, room to live, room to become a solid idea. So in divergent, there is none of that. There's no crosstalk. You let all ideas land on the table, even the wild and crazy ideas. If I say we need a purple polka dotted elephant to come in the room to solve this problem, that idea makes it to the table. So we diverge first in creative problem solving. All ideas make it to the table. And then once we've exhausted all ideas without judgment, then we move to convergent thinking. And convergent thinking is this idea of drawing all those ideas together and find the ones that fit best into your parameters, into your criteria. Let's say this project, this problem has to be solved in X amount of time. under X amount of dollars. Whatever the criteria is, this is where you set that criteria in convergent thinking. And then you look at all your amazing ideas in divergent thinking and see which ones you can move over to work with further. And it may be a combination of ideas. Now that everyone's ideas are on the table, there may be a combination of ideas that you can move forward. And that's the beauty of this process, is that you're able to share ideas and then merge them and collaborate. So that's the principle of creative problem solving. And there's a movement, this is like a physical movement you can do to kind of remember this, right? So if you think of divergent thinking, your arms up in the air, gathering ideas. And then convergent thinking is bringing everything together. Now, try to do both of those at the same time, right? Diverge and converge. I've never been able to do it. I don't know if you can, but the idea is you can't do them together and be effective at the same time. So remember, when you're problem solving, to diverge before you converge. So let's move into some of the tools of creative problem solving. The first one is this principle of, or this tool of yes and. It comes from improv, where we're building on each other's ideas. Again, this is something that some of you may have heard of, some of you may have done before, but it's always good to practice. Now, usually we would do this in groups, but since, again, this is webinar style, I want to tell you what yes and promotes first, and then we'll get into this activity. So yes and promotes active listening. It promotes this idea of divergent thinking, coming up with ideas based on the previous person's idea, and it builds trust, because what you're doing is listening and building on the previous idea. Now, generally, this again is done in groups of 2 or more, but since this is webinar style, and since we often have to actively listen to ourselves, we have to practice divergent thinking for ourselves, and we have to learn to trust ourselves. We're just going to do this individually. So the prompt is, using this yes and methodology, you're going to ask yourself, how have I turned a challenge into an opportunity during the past 20 months? So the first thing you're going to do is come up with one thing, one opportunity, one challenge that you've turned into an opportunity over the past 20 months. And you're going to yes and yourself. You're going to make one statement, and you're going to say yes and follow it with another statement. So for example, if I ask myself this, how have I turned a challenge into an opportunity during the past 20 months, is I was able to work with my clients and transition some of my live trainings into virtual trainings. My next statement might start with yes, and because my work is so hands-on, I was also able to take all my materials and find a way to ship them to people so everyone has materials at home. And then I can say yes, and because I was able to do that, I was able to impact all these people with my creative work, regardless of the fact that we were stuck at home for the past 20, maybe it's more than 20 months now. I don't even know, I'm not even counting. But that's the principle of yes and, to build on your ideas. Again, usually in a group, but for this activity today, it's just going to be on your own. So I'm going to play some music and time you for 1 minute. So 1 minute, just in your head, or write it down, yes and, answering the question, how have you turned a challenge into an opportunity during the past 20 months? All right. As you finish up here, let's go ahead and see some in the chat. What are a couple of your yes ands? It's also an opportunity to really recognize ourselves, right? Acknowledge some things that we've done over the past 20 months in a very challenging and complex time. And I don't think any of us really ever take enough time to acknowledge ourselves. So this is a great opportunity to type in the chat, what challenges have you turned into opportunity in the past 20 months? Let's see if anyone out there is going to share. Hi, Janine, I see you're there. Okay, Tom, he created a virtual version of his session, Voice of Customers Process, and reached many more people in the process. Isn't it been amazing, Tom? I mean, I've been telling the story of how, you don't need to know my whole history, but I'm a Vietnamese refugee. Our family came here in 1979 at the fall of Saigon. And during this pandemic, I've been able to bring my work to some companies in Vietnam. It's been so rewarding. There's so many possibilities that this challenging time has brought for us. Nice work, Tom. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so let's move on. So that's one tool you can use for creative problem solving, and try this with your team. Think about the idea of what I said before, when you're in a room full of people and you come up, a challenge is posed, and then someone says an idea, and the next thing they said is no, but, or maybe, well, I'm not sure, right? What you're doing is you're not letting that idea have any room to breathe. That person's idea might spark another creative idea in someone else. So this is just one of the reasons the yes and tool is so important, because you really want to build on people's ideas. But in using it, even just using it with yourself right now, do you just feel a lot better saying yes and? Imagine what that can create, what kind of culture that can create in a workplace, the trust and psychological safety that can be built just by simply using that methodology of yes and. All right, so the next tool I want to teach you is called Force Connections, and it's the use of visual images to make a connection to a challenge, an opportunity, or to any untapped ideas. Again, using visual cues often allows us to dig into our subconscious and pull out information that we can't come up with if we're just sitting here trying to grab it from the air and think things out loud. So the way you use Force Connections is you're going to state your challenge, state your complex challenge, whatever it might be, or the opportunity. And then you can provide some images. I'm going to provide you with some images on the next slide. You provide images, and then you give people time to reflect on the characteristics of the images to uncover an association to the challenge, the opportunity, finding untapped ideas. But before we do that, we need a challenge, right? So I'd like everyone to just take a moment here and think of a challenge you're currently facing. It can be anything, personal or professional. I'm going to share mine right now, and it's an ongoing challenge for me. We're almost around the corner of this, but it's still very relevant in my life every morning. My 8-year-old does not want to wear shoes ever, not even to school. So that is a challenge I'm facing right now. You can use a personal one like that, or you can use something more professional. But go ahead and just take a moment right now and write down your current challenge. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move forward, because I have a feeling during this time, it's not hard for any of us to find a challenge. I'm sure you could have written down 3 or 4 during the time I gave you. Okay, so here's the Force Connections exercise. I'll give you an example first, then I'll give you some time to do this on your own. So again, it's the use of visual images to find a connection to your challenge. So for example, what characteristics of these images represent a solution to my challenge? For my challenge, the whole idea of shoes, right? So I'm looking at these pictures, I'm looking at that tree, I'm thinking, you know what? I am always just trying to get him to put those shoes on. But maybe what I need to be doing is looking at the root of the problem. Why doesn't he want to wear shoes? Or looking at the boot, I'm thinking, you know, I may have to reach out to my community and get the reflection of, like, those are like really reflective boots, the reflection from other people. Yeah, he goes to a great school with great resources. Why am I trying to solve this by myself? Like I can look at go to other people and get their reflection on this, and maybe someone else has some ideas for me. So now it's your turn. Take your challenge and ask yourself the same question. What characteristics of these images represents a solution to my challenge? You are free to do this on your own. You don't want to share your challenge. It'd be interesting to hear your challenges as well. If you want to, you can type them into the chat and then type your solutions as well. Type tree and then what your solution is. Boot, what your solution might be. You're welcome to use all 4 images. Focus on one image. Focus on 2 images, whatever you'd like. I'll play music for you and we'll give you 2 minutes for this exercise. Again, as you come up with these ideas, feel free to type in the chat box. What does that rubber ball mean to you? How might it help you solve your problem? The boot, the ladder, the tree. I like that, Janine. Bounce back with gusto. Okay. So this forced connections exercise is one of my favorites for creative problem solving because it's a low-hanging fruit, right? I'm not asking you to sketch. I'm not even asking you to build with Legos, which I often do as a Lego Serious Play facilitator. All we're asking people to do is look at a picture and come up with ideas from a picture. Anyone can do that. It's a low-hanging fruit of creative problem solving. And what I love is that people come up with all different things. Bouncing back with gusto. That's never anything I've ever seen when I've shown people this picture, right? Every single time I show these images and ask for reflections, people are coming up with something different. And when you're doing this with your teams, the beauty of sharing is that it brings up more ideas from people. The more ideas that are shared, the more ideas that can come up. I like that. Stephanie wrote, the tree creating a few branches that can then reach more people exponentially. And I love that thought because it plays right into what I was just saying. The more times you share, the more that you grow ideas exponentially, right? So the process of idea sharing is exponential. Someone comes up with one idea. It's not critiqued or judged. And what that's going to do is build people's trust and confidence in sharing more ideas. And that's what creativity is about. That's what innovation is about. And that's how you get past complex problems, complex situations. So try this one with your team. I'd love to hear how people take it. People tend to get a little uncomfortable with it first, but then as they move forward and they see that they can really draw information out of these images, it gets very playful. All right. So another exercise, we're not going to get into this. I'm going to share a story about this. It's called Break the Rules. And it comes from Duncan Wardle, who used to be work in the innovation department at Disney. And what he did here is he talks about this idea of stating a challenge, looking at the rules of that challenges, and then asking what if that rule does not exist, and then imagining outside of that rule. So imagining outside the box. So the challenge that they were facing when they worked on this at Disney was the fact that the lines at Disney were so long, and they wanted to create a better experience for people, for their customers. So they looked at the different rules about lines at Disneyland, right? So the one rule they came up with was like, people have to stand in lines to go on rides at Disneyland. And then they asked, well, what if there were no lines? It's an interesting what if question. And I'm sure there were challenges that came with that question, but you don't want to pay attention to the challenges at this point. You just want to ask, what if? What if there are no lines? And then you can get imaginative. You can use your imagination. So in the imagine if column, they start coming up with ideas, wild and crazy ones too. What if we could create a way for people to not stand in lines? What if we could have people go find people at the park? What if we can make appointments at rides? And all this what if, all this imagining, what that came down to was them coming up with the magic bands. So the magic bands, now people can log on before and create their own experience at Disneyland, including fast passes to rides. So they have times that they can show up to the rides and they don't have to stand in line. We're not going to work on this one right now, but this is something you can take with you and work on by yourself. But it's a challenge you're having personally or with your team. But I wanted to share this because I'm telling you, like, if it's good enough for Disneyland, it's good enough for me. Okay. So those are the 3 tools I want to share with you today in creative problem solving, how to get past complex problems and challenges through creative leadership. Creative leaders understand, again, that it's not just up to you, right? The power of creative leadership is that you understand collaboration. You understand that ideas can come from anyone in your organization, and you want to nurture that creativity. You want to nurture the sharing of these ideas through creativity. Not everyone can come up with ideas by sitting in a boardroom and sharing ideas. I will tell you that I am that person. I am that person. If we're in a boardroom and someone stands up at the front and asks, does anyone have an idea to solve this challenge? You're not going to hear from me. You're not going to hear from me because that's not the way I think. And many people don't think that way. So through creativity, what you're doing is you're giving everyone a chance and a way to have their voice heard in a way that makes sense for them. All right, so let's see, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable were you doing those exercises? 1, you were very uncomfortable, and 10, you were very comfortable. Let's see, can someone type in the chat box? A couple of people, let's see a couple of people's answers here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable were you doing those exercises? And I always get a variety here. Some people are all the way down to 1, some people are all the way out of 10, and it's okay. Because again, creativity is a capacity. Janine, I knew you'd be very comfortable. You're probably an 11. The idea is that creativity is a capacity. It's a capacity we all have. And no matter where we are on this comfort level of using our creativity, we can always grow in our capacity. And you can always grow from a 1 all the way to a 10. The idea is you need to practice it and use it. And creativity is like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the more it grows. And the beauty of it is you can never run out of it. All right. So some people may be a 1, some people may be a 10. And like I said, that's okay. The idea of bringing something new to any environment is going to offer a little bit of challenges. And in particular, when I talk about creative problem solving, we talk about this idea of normalizing creative chaos. And what is creative chaos? Creative chaos is when you learn all these new tools, these creative tools to bring into the workplace. You're so excited about it. I'm going to try force connections. I'm going to do a yes and session. We're going to try all these new things. And you start at that very tip of the left hand point there, and you start going, and it's a straight line. And then you dig into it, and then it gets a little messy. This is creative chaos. This is when things look like it's not really going to work out. I don't know what I'm doing. this is taking too long. People don't really understand what we're working on here. People aren't into it. So you think. And the idea of normalizing creative chaos is you want to work through that. You want to keep going. Oftentimes in creative chaos is when people make a U-turn and turn around and go back to the way things always were, the way things have always been done. The way things have always been done is not necessarily the right way. It's not necessarily the best way. So the idea of using your curiosity, trying new ways, you can always go back, you can always go back if it doesn't really work out, but give it a solid shot. So normalizing creative chaos means knowing that creative chaos is going to happen 100% of the time, every time you try something new, every time you try a new creative problem-solving tool. So what your job is as a creative leader is to not make that U-turn, is to keep going. And it'll get smoother and smoother, and then you can end up in innovation and change. And not just innovation and change, but I've seen this type of work really change cultures in businesses, right? The idea of giving people a chance to not only be creative, which is natural for all of us, but giving people a chance to have their ideas and their voice heard, that changes culture. That builds psychological safety, and it makes your company a better place to work, where everyone is sharing ideas, everyone feels safe to share ideas, and is more innovative. You saw the statistics in the beginning, what creativity can do for an organization. One last thing I want to share with you is this idea of overcoming creative limiting beliefs. And it's a tool that I use you can really use it to overcome any limiting beliefs, but for our purposes today, I want to talk about it in terms of creativity, because a lot of us have limiting beliefs around our own creativity and our team's creativity and how we can bring this creativity into the workplace. So the way this tool it works is you make 3 columns. And in the first column, you're going to write down your limiting belief. In the second column, you're going to change that limiting belief into a new belief, a possibility. And then you can give evidence to yourself why you think this possibility can become true. So I have a couple examples here for you through the lens of creativity. The first one is, and I hear this often, Janine, I'm sure you hear this often too, I am not creative. We are all creative. Human beings are born innately creative. We are all creative, but I hear this often, particularly in the workplace, I am not creative. So what new belief can you make of that? You can rewrite it to, I am creative, because that is a fact, or you can rewrite it to, I can learn to expand my creative capacity. And what's some evidence of this? It can be so simple. Like last night I cooked something, I adapted the recipe. That's creative. I spoke to someone who has been a creative leader, a facilitator like I am for 20 years, writing her own content, creating her own workbooks, writing her own talks. And she said to me, I'm not creative. And I'm like, what have you been doing over the past 20 years? You've been creating all this time. So really looking at what you do and really find the creativity behind it. So the second one I wrote there as an example is I create proposals for work, right? That is creative work. Another one I hear often is, my team doesn't have time for creative thinking. We saw again through statistics that creativity is important in the workplace. So your new belief might be something like, my team will thrive from creative thinking and we can make time for it. And what's your evidence? I see this in my personal life all the time, is I make time for the things I find value in. So, and that's true for yourself too, right? This excuse of we don't have time is just an excuse. You will make time for the things you find important. So this is a great tool for mindset shift for yourself or again, of your teams. This we did around creativity, but like I said, this limiting belief exercise can be done for any limiting belief you have in your life, personal or professional. Okay, so that comes to the end of my presentation. This is my contact information. You can reach me anytime on, mostly through email. I'm always on LinkedIn. Please visit me there and we can connect there. We will also be posting a link for you to join our 4-part creativity and innovation training that Janine and I will be hosting next year. And I also have a newsletter that goes out every month called Curious About Creativity. So there'll be a link for that as well for updates on my work and tips on bringing creativity into the workplace. Thank you so much for your time today, your willingness to be open and being creative. And we hope to see you in our creativity and innovation training 4-part course next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vaughn. That was really fun, creative exercises to walk through. A couple questions just from my end, and we'll see if the audience has anything else to ask. But how would you suggest like prepping your team for participating in some of these like activities and embracing these ideas before you're caught in the moment of we have a challenge and we need to come up with a solution?
Yeah, so I tend to not mention like we're going to do something creative, right? I would maybe prep by saying we're going to try something different today, right? Just something different, because when you use, like I said, like a lot of people are like, I'm not creative. So when you preface this whole idea of like we're going to use creative problem solving, this is what creativity is, it can sometimes turn people off. But you just go in there saying like, here's a challenge we're facing. This is how we generally do things. We're going to do things a little differently today. I want to try this exercise with you.
Cool. Yeah. So just making it simple and not overthinking it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And
now,
then
it's a little different if they show up in the room. You've got, the workshops I do have crayons and markers and Legos in front of them. So they kind of have a clue. It's going to be different, but
yeah.
But yeah, I would say generally for a leader wanting to try some of these, I would just walk in and saying, here's our challenge. Instead of doing the way we normally do it, let's just try something different today.
Cool. All right. And then a specific question on that forced connections and where you see the different visuals.
Yes.
Is it like one person who needs to select those? How would you go through that process of like getting it ready?
The images?
Yes.
Oh my, you can literally like just pull up images from anywhere. It doesn't matter. That's the beauty of forced connections. I could have put a picture of a puppy dog up there and people have come up with ideas. So the beauty of this is like the person prepping it, you don't have to put much thought into it. Just put up images. And it's like the idea of, what Janine shared last time is perspective. Everyone has a different perspective of those images. So you don't need to think ahead for them. They will pull out their own ideas from any image you put up there.
Okay. So yeah, it could be random. It's still going to work.
Absolutely.
Outcome that you're looking for. Cool. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. So I'll just close us out with a few final thoughts. I know you mentioned the 4-part program that's coming in 2022. So if anyone is interested in that and kind of further developing your creative capacity, we have a wait list for that you can sign up for. We'll be sharing information there and dates coming in the new year. So keep an eye out for that. And we really just appreciate the time, Vaughn, and really loved your presentation today. So we hope that the participants can take these back to their workplaces and help their teams.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And Janine, I'm so excited to be part of this program.
Yeah, awesome. For Women in Tech, you can find us on LinkedIn or Instagram to stay up to date on all of our events. We do mentorship, leadership development. There are networking opportunities. So we would love for you to join our movement. You can become a member at womenintech.org/become a member. We'll drop that link in the chat also here shortly. But thank you everyone for your time today, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful day.